The burning ship was too hot for any species, but a human walked in anyway to save the alien child. The Nebulan-class freighter, Stellar Dawn, was a marvel of engineering, capable of traversing entire galaxies in a single cycle. However, even the most advanced vessels were not immune to disaster. Suspended in orbit above an uncharted planet, the ship's hull had been breached, its life support systems failing. Flames roared through its corridors, consuming everything in their path. Rescue ships swarmed the area, their crews desperate to evacuate the survivors. Among the responders was Captain Aiden Voss, a human with a reputation for taking impossible risks. His ship, the Resolute Spirit, hovered nearby, sensors scanning for life signs amidst the chaos. The call. Aiden stood on the bridge of his vessel, his sharp blue eyes fixed on the holographic display. The Stellar Dawn's structure flickered in and out as fire consumed its interior. Life signs detected, announced Cell, the ship's AI. The voice was calm, almost too calm given the circumstances. One remaining signature located in Quadrant C, 12. Probability of survival. Less than 5%. Species? Aiden asked, his voice clipped. Lorian, Cell replied.
Child.
Age. Approximately 4 cycles. Aiden's jaw tightened. The Lorians were fragile compared to humans, their crystalline skin prone to shattering under extreme temperatures. If a Lorian child was still alive in that inferno, it wouldn't last much longer. No one else? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Negative, Cell confirmed. Rescue teams have deemed the quadrant inaccessible. Aiden didn't hesitate. Prepare my suit. I'm going in. Captain, Cell said, an uncharacteristic note of concern in its tone. The heat levels exceed human tolerance. Your suit will fail within minutes. Aiden glanced at the viewport, where the Stellar Dawn burned like a dying star. Minutes might be enough. Into the inferno. The heat struck Aiden like a physical blow the moment he entered the Stellar Dawn. His advanced exosuit whirred, struggling to compensate. Sweat pooled at the base of his neck despite the cooling system. Cell, guide me, he said, his voice muffled by the helmet. Proceed down corridor A9, the AI instructed. Then take the second left. The child's signal is faint but steady. Aiden moved quickly, his boots crunching over shattered panels and molten debris. Fire raged on either side, licking at the suit's reinforced plating. He didn't have time to think about the risk. The Lorian child's life was all that mattered. Reaching the designated corridor, he found the door to C-12 sealed shut. The panel's controls were melted beyond use. Aiden cursed under his breath and pulled a plasma cutter from his belt. Sparks flew as he carved through the barrier, every second feeling like an eternity. Finally, the door fell away, revealing the room beyond. It was a nursery, or what was left of one. Cribs lay in ruins, their contents turned to ash. In the far corner, huddled beneath a shattered stasis pod, was the Lorian child. Its translucent body shimmered weakly, fractures running through its crystalline form. I've got you, Aiden murmured, his voice softening as he approached. The child flinched, its large, gem-like eyes wide with terror. Captain, Cell warned, temperature levels are critical. The suit's integrity will fail in 120 seconds. Ignoring the AI, Aiden knelt and extended a hand. It's okay, he said. I'm here to help. The child hesitated, then reached out with trembling fingers. Its touch was icy despite the inferno around them. Aiden scooped it up, cradling the fragile being against his chest. Hold on, he whispered, turning back toward the corridor. Escape. The journey back was a race against time. Alarms blared in his helmet, warning of failing systems. The fire seemed to close in, the heat intensifying with every step. 30 seconds until suit failure, Cell intoned. Noted, Aiden snapped, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The exit loomed ahead, a shimmering portal of safety. But as he neared, a support beam collapsed, blocking the path. Aiden's heart sank. There was no time to find another way. Gritting his teeth, he activated the suit's emergency strength enhancers. With a guttural roar, he heaved the beam aside, the effort draining what little energy the suit had left. Flames licked at his arms as he stumbled through the opening, clutching the child tightly. The airlock of the resolute spirit sealed behind him just as the suit's systems gave out. Aiden collapsed to his knees, coughing as the cool air rushed in. Medics swarmed him, their hands gentle as they took the Lorian child from his arms. "Is it okay?" he croaked, his vision swimming. One of the medics nodded. "The child will live, thanks to you." Relief washed over him, and he allowed himself to sink into unconsciousness. Aftermath. Aiden woke in the medbay, his body aching but alive. Cell's voice greeted him. "Captain, it appears your penchant for recklessness has once again paid off." He chuckled weakly. "How's the kid?" "Recovering," Cell replied. "The Lorian ambassador has expressed profound gratitude. It seems you've made quite an impression." Aiden closed his eyes, a faint smile on his lips.
"Good.
That's all that matters." As he drifted back to sleep, he couldn't help but think that saving one life, no matter the cost, was worth every risk. Into the inferno. The ship's hull groaned as intense heat warped its structure. Flames licked the walls, devouring everything in their path. The fire suppression systems had failed hours ago, leaving the interior of the alien vessel a blazing death trap. For most species, entering such an inferno would be a suicide mission. But for Commander Elias Kane, it was just another challenge to overcome. "Commander, you're insane," a voice crackled through the comms. It was Lieutenant Asha Rao, his second-in-command, monitoring the situation from the safety of their own ship. "Probably," Elias replied, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "But there's a kid in here, and I'm not leaving without them." Elias's heat-resistant suit had been custom-designed for extreme environments, but even it had its limits. The HUD in his helmet displayed dangerously high temperatures, and his oxygen supply was ticking down alarmingly fast. He pushed forward, dodging falling debris and blazing arcs of energy. The alien ship's corridors were a labyrinth of smoke and fire, and his path was lit only by the flickering flames and the occasional pulse from his locator beacon. The child's signal grew stronger. It was faint but distinct, a desperate pulse of life amidst the inferno. Elias clenched his jaw. He couldn't fail. Not this time. The alien child. Elias found the child in what appeared to be a nursery, though the term hardly applied anymore. The room was half collapsed, with molten metal dripping from the ceiling. In the center of the chaos was a small figure huddled under a shimmering force field. The child, clearly of alien origin, had smooth, iridescent skin that glimmered like liquid silver. Wide, terrified eyes locked onto Elias as he approached. "Hey, kid," he said softly, kneeling just outside the force field. "I'm here to help." The child didn't respond but stared at him with a mixture of fear and hope. Elias tapped a control on his wrist, deploying a portable translator. "It's okay," he said again. "I'm going to get you out of here." The child's gaze shifted to the flames encroaching on their fragile shield. Their tiny hands clutched something close to their chest, a toy, perhaps, or some other treasured item. Elias studied the force field generator. It was an impressive piece of technology, but it was failing. Sparks danced along its edges, and the field flickered with increasing instability. "This thing's not going to hold much longer," he muttered. He pulled a containment module from his suit's pack. "All right, kid. I'm going to turn this on. It'll protect us both, but you need to come with me. Understand?" The child hesitated, but then gave a small nod. Elias activated the containment field and reached out. The alien child's hand was cool to the touch, a stark contrast to the searing heat around them. He pulled them close, securing the child in a protective harness on his suit. "Hang on tight," he said. "Things are about to get rough." Escape and aftermath. Getting out was harder than getting in. The ship's structure was collapsing, and every step was a fight against time. Explosions rattled the corridors, and molten debris rained from above. Elias's suit alarms screamed warnings about rising temperatures and decreasing oxygen levels. "Elias, status report." Asha's voice cut through the noise. "Got the kid," Elias grunted. "But this place is falling apart. I need that evac point clear." We're ready when you are. Just get there. Elias pushed himself harder, his body protesting with every step. The child clung to him, their tiny fingers gripping his suit with surprising strength. He rounded a corner and saw the docking bay ahead, its doors wide open. The sight of his ship, the Artemis, waiting just beyond was like a beacon of hope. A final explosion rocked the ship, throwing Elias off balance. He hit the ground hard, his visor cracking slightly. The containment field flickered, but held. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself up and sprinted the last few meters to the airlock. As soon as they were inside, the Artemis's systems kicked into gear. The airlock sealed, and fire suppression foam flooded the chamber. Elias collapsed to his knees, gasping for air as his suit's systems finally powered down. "We've got them," he panted. "Kid's safe." The airlock doors opened, and Asha was there, her face a mixture of relief and anger. "You're a damn fool," she said, helping him to his feet. Elias managed a tired grin. "Maybe. But the kid's alive. That's what matters." The alien child looked up at him, their eyes filled with gratitude. They spoke for the first time, their voice a melodic hum that the translator struggled to process. "Thank you," it finally rendered. Elias nodded. "You're welcome, kid." As the Artemis pulled away from the doomed ship, Elias watched through the viewport as the vessel was consumed by flames. He had risked everything and won, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The child's presence on the ship raised questions that demanded answers. But for now, they were safe. And that was enough. The alien ship groaned and buckled as the relentless heat gnawed at its metallic bones. Ember-red light painted the corridors, and the stench of burning composite materials filled the air. Darren's lungs burned as he adjusted the oxygen mask strapped tightly to his face. Each step he took into the smoldering vessel felt like stepping into a furnace, the soles of his boots leaving faint, melted impressions on the floor. The message from the alien child, a desperate, psychic cry, had seared into his mind like a brand. He didn't know how the creature had reached him or why its voice had resonated so deeply. But he knew he couldn't turn away. Others called him foolish, but Darren's heart wouldn't allow retreat. "Command, I'm inside," Darren rasped into his comms, his voice distorted by static and the roaring flames. Conditions worse than expected. No sign of the child yet. "Copy that, Darren," came the reply, laced with worry. "You've got 10 minutes max. Any longer, and the structural integrity will collapse. Get in and out." He nodded to himself, gripping his heat-resistant axe tightly. The layout of the alien ship was foreign, with twisting corridors and organic-looking structures that made navigation a nightmare. The flames seemed alive, writhing and clawing at him as he pressed forward. Ahead, a loud crash reverberated through the ship. Darren froze, scanning for movement. His flashlight beam cut through the smoke, revealing a collapsed bulkhead blocking the path. "Damn it," he muttered. He planted his feet, raised the axe, and swung. Sparks flew as the blade bit into the material. With each strike, the bulkhead gave way, inch by inch, until a narrow opening was cleared. Crawling through, he emerged into what looked like a control room. The heat was unbearable here, the walls glowing with a menacing orange hue. And then he saw it. Curled into a corner was the alien child, its skin an iridescent shade of blue and dotted with tiny, quivering bioluminescent patches. Its large, dark eyes met his, filled with a mixture of fear and relief. The creature whimpered, its frail limbs trembling. "I've got you," Darren said softly, approaching slowly. He pulled out a heat-resistant blanket and carefully wrapped the child. It flinched at first, but soon relaxed in his arms. "Let's get out of here." The ship groaned again, a violent shudder nearly knocking Darren off his feet. The ceiling began to crack, molten debris raining down. He shielded the child with his body, his suit's outer layers scorching as he ran for the exit. "Collapse." "Darren, report." Command's voice was frantic. "I have the child," he managed, his breath labored. "Trying to get back, but the path is compromised. The ship's falling apart faster than we thought. We're tracking your beacon." Hold tight. We're sending drones to clear a route. Darren didn't have time to reply. A deafening explosion rocked the ship, throwing him against a wall. The child cried out, its psychic voice stabbing into his mind with raw fear. I know, Darren muttered, clutching the creature closer. We're getting out of here. Just hang on. He adjusted his grip and pushed forward, navigating through a labyrinth of flames and collapsing structures. His oxygen warning flashed on his HUD, the countdown a grim reminder of how little time he had left. The drones arrived just as he reached another blocked corridor. Sleek and fast, they emitted bursts of concentrated coolant, suppressing the flames enough for Darren to advance. One drone hovered beside him, scanning for structural weaknesses and guiding him through. Almost there, Darren panted as he spotted the faint light of the exit hatch ahead. His vision blurred from the heat and exhaustion, but he forced himself onward. Then the floor beneath him gave way. He fell, twisting in midair to shield the child. They landed hard on a lower deck, the impact jarring his entire body. Pain flared in his leg, but he bit back a scream. He couldn't afford to stop. Command, he gasped, I'm down a level. Need an alternate route. Hold on, we're recalculating. Are you injured? Nothing I can't handle. The child's eyes glowed faintly, and Darren felt a strange warmth spread through his body. The pain in his leg lessened, the swelling subsiding. He stared at the creature in astonishment. You can heal, he realized. The child tilted its head, its expression unreadable, but the gesture was answer enough. With renewed determination, Darren pushed onward. Command guided him through the ship's schematics, leading him to a maintenance hatch that bypassed the collapsed sections. Almost there, Command urged. Your suit's readings are critical. You need to move now. He reached the final corridor, the exit hatch in sight. But standing in his way was a towering inferno, the flames impossibly high and intense. The drones circled, attempting to suppress it, but the heat was too great. The child stirred in his arms, its bioluminescent patches glowing brighter. Darren felt a strange energy ripple through him, and the flames before him began to part, as if an invisible barrier was pushing them back. You're doing this? He asked, awed. The child's glow pulsed in response, and Darren didn't hesitate. He sprinted through the parted flames, the heat licking at his suit but never breaching. The hatch loomed closer, and with one final push, he slammed his hand against the emergency release. The hatch burst open and cool, fresh air flooded in. Darren stumbled out onto the rescue platform, collapsing to his knees. Medics rushed to his side, taking the child from his arms and examining them both. You did it, one of them said, their voice filled with disbelief and admiration. You actually did it. As Darren's oxygen mask was removed, he looked up to see the alien child staring at him, its eyes filled with gratitude. A faint, psychic whisper brushed against his mind. Thank you. And then the ship behind them exploded, a fiery blossom consuming the sky. But they were safe, and for the first time in hours, Darren allowed himself to breathe. The burning ship was a testament to the fragility of even the most advanced civilizations. The alien craft, sleek and iridescent, now lay broken and ablaze against the backdrop of a desolate asteroid field. Flames licked hungrily at its shattered hull, sending up noxious plumes of smoke that could strip the lungs of most beings. The air shimmered with heat, the temperature inside already lethal for almost any known species. But Commander Adrian Vega was not most beings. She tightened the seals of her fire-resistant suit, her heart pounding like the engines of the very ship that was now her enemy. The alien child's cries, transmitted through the damaged intercom, were weak and intermittent. Vega knew she didn't have much time. You're insane, Commander, her second-in-command, Lieutenant Jericho, said over the comms. His voice crackled with urgency. Even with that suit, you'll last minutes at best. Let the evac drones handle it. The drones can't navigate the collapsed corridors, Vega shot back, her tone as sharp as the flames around her. That child's got one chance, and it's me. She stepped through the first breached airlock. The heat hit her like a physical force. even through the suit. The interior of the alien vessel was a nightmare of twisted metal and raging infernos. Vega's HUD flickered as the suit's cooling systems strained to keep up. Each step forward was a battle against both the environment and her own fear. The child's location was mapped on her scanner, a small blinking, deep within the ship. Getting there meant traversing a labyrinth of broken pathways, many of them half-consumed by fire. Vega's boots clanged against the metallic floor as she moved, each sound swallowed by the roaring inferno. "Commander, your suit's integrity is dropping rapidly," Jericho's voice cut in again. "You need to turn back now." "Not an option," Vega replied through gritted teeth. She vaulted over a collapsed beam, her body protesting against the heat and the strain. Every breath felt like inhaling molten iron. As she rounded a corner, the source of the child's cries came into view. The alien, small and fragile, was trapped under a heavy support beam. Its translucent skin glowed faintly, pulsating in rhythm with its weak breaths. Its wide, dark eyes locked onto Vega with a mixture of fear and hope. "I've got you," Vega whispered, though she doubted the creature understood her language. She crouched beside it, analyzing the beam. It was too heavy to lift alone, and her tools were back on her own ship. Thinking quickly, she reached for the small explosive charges in her utility belt. "Jericho, I need you to guide me through a controlled detonation. If I mess this up, the kid's as good as gone," Jericho finished. His voice was tight, but professional. "I've got you, Commander. Let's do this." Vega carefully placed the charges, her hands trembling. The flames seemed to close in, as if the ship itself was fighting her. Sweat dripped into her eyes, and her suit's alarms blared warnings she couldn't afford to heed. "Fire in 3, 2, 1, she said, pressing the detonator. The explosion was small but precise, dislodging the beam without further collapse. Vega pulled the child free, cradling its light, fragile body against her chest. It whimpered softly, but it was alive. "I've got you," she repeated, turning to retrace her steps. The way back was even more treacherous, the ship's structure groaning under the strain of the flames. But Vega moved with purpose, the child's survival fueling her determination. Finally, the airlock loomed ahead, a glowing beacon of safety. Vega stumbled through, collapsing onto the floor of her own ship as the airlock sealed behind her. The fire-resistant suit hissed as it decompressed, and she tore off her helmet, gulping in fresh air. The alien child's small hand reached up, touching her cheek. Its eyes glimmered with gratitude. "We're safe," Vega murmured, though her vision blurred and exhaustion claimed her. "You're safe." Vega woke to the steady beep of medical monitors. She blinked against the sterile lights of the infirmary, her body aching in ways she didn't know were possible. Jericho's face appeared above her, his expression a mixture of relief and exasperation. "You're a goddamn lunatic," he said, his tone soft despite the words. "But you did it. The kid's alive." Vega managed a weak smile. "Where is it?" "In quarantine. Dr. Selani is running tests, but it seems stable. Whatever species it is, it's tough. Tougher than you, apparently." "I'll take that as a compliment," Vega muttered, trying to sit up. Pain flared through her chest, and she winced. "Report?" Jericho's expression grew serious. "The alien ship is completely lost. Whatever caused the fire also wiped most of their systems. We've got fragments of their database, but it'll take time to piece together anything useful." "And the rest of the crew?" Jericho shook his head. "No survivors. Just the kid." The weight of his words settled over Vega. She'd saved one life, but at the cost of so many others. The mission was far from over, and questions burned at her mind. What had caused the disaster? Where had the ship come from? And why was the child left alive when everything else had perished? The alien child's recovery was swift, its resilience astonishing. Within days, it was exploring the confines of the quarantine chamber, its curiosity evident in the way it examined every object with its delicate, glowing fingers. Dr. Selani observed it with fascination. "Its biology is unlike anything we've encountered. It's adapted to extreme conditions, which explains how it survived the fire. But there's something else. What? Vega asked, leaning against the glass wall of the chamber. Her body still ached, but she couldn't stay away. It's emitting low-frequency signals, Selani explained. Not random, structured. I think it's trying to communicate. Vega's heart quickened. Can we understand it? I'm working on it, Selani said. But it'll take time. In the meantime, I suggest you spend more time with it. It seems to trust you. Vega nodded. She entered the chamber cautiously, the child's eyes lighting up at her presence. It reached out, its tiny hand brushing against hers. A surge of warmth and something deeper, an unspoken connection, passed between them. Hey there, Vega said softly. You're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out. The child's glowing fingers traced patterns in the air, shapes that Vega couldn't comprehend but felt compelled to understand. It was a beginning, fragile and uncertain, but a beginning nonetheless. Became more coherent over the following days. Dr. Selani, with the help of the ship's linguistic AI, began deciphering the patterns. Each breakthrough revealed fragments of a tragic story, the child's homeworld, a place of shimmering crystal forests and endless light, had been destroyed by an unknown cataclysm. The child, a survivor of an ancient lineage, had been aboard the ship as part of a desperate exodus. The signals suggest they were fleeing something, Selani explained during one briefing. A force or entity powerful enough to decimate their world. But the data is incomplete. Vega's mind raced. If whatever did this is still out there, we need to know. The child might hold the key. Chapter 15. Unseen Threat. As the team delved deeper into the recovered fragments of the alien ship's database, disturbing patterns emerged. The destruction of the ship hadn't been an accident. Sensor logs revealed traces of an energy signature, one not found in any known database. It's not natural, Jericho said, studying the readings. This was an attack. Vega's stomach sank. And whoever did this could still be tracking survivors. We need to move fast. The alien child's behavior grew restless, its signals shifting in frequency and urgency. It began drawing more complex patterns, shapes that the AI couldn't decode. Vega spent hours in the quarantine chamber, trying to reassure the child while piecing together its warnings. Chapter 16. The Hunter Approaches. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a faint distortion on the ship's long-range scanners. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough to set the crew on edge. It's following us, Jericho said grimly. Whoever attacked that ship isn't done. Vega's mind churned with plans. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. If they're coming for the child, we'll be ready. As the crew scrambled to fortify their ship, Vega returned to the quarantine chamber. The child's signals had reached a fever pitch, its glowing hands forming symbols in rapid succession. Vega knelt beside it, grasping its tiny hand. We'll protect you, she said firmly. No matter what. The child's eyes met hers, filled with a quiet determination. Together, they faced the unknown, ready to fight for survival and the truth. Into the inferno. Smoke billowed in dense black clouds, curling out from the skeletal remains of the alien transport vessel. The ground crew, a mix of species native to the intergalactic coalition, worked tirelessly to contain the fire, their exosuits whirring as they operated massive suppressant cannons. Yet even with their advanced technology, the flames resisted, an unearthly blaze feeding on an unknown, hyperreactive fuel. Colonel Marcus Kane stood at the edge of the chaos, his soot-covered face hardened into a mask of grim determination. No suit can handle this heat, warned Zathel, a reptilian engineer whose scales shimmered with nervous energy. You're mad if you go in there. Marcus adjusted the straps of his flame-retardant gear and flashed a lopsided grin. I've been called worse. That kid needs help. Nobody else can survive it. So it's gotta be me. The alien child, a delicate, chitinous being named Tezcari, was trapped in the ship's reactor chamber. The vessel's automated systems had locked down, shielding the core but also sealing Tezcari inside with the inferno. Marcus had seen war zones less hellish than this wreckage, but his gut told him to move. No excuses. No hesitation. Taking one last look at the coalition medics tending to the distraught alien parents, Marcus stepped forward. The temperature near the ship was unbearable. Sweat soaked through his clothing instantly. As he approached the breach, he activated his helmet's thermal vision, the flames rendering the world into a blurred orange haze. With a deep breath, Marcus entered the inferno. Inside, the air was heavy, searing his lungs even through the respirator. Every step felt like an eternity as molten metal dripped from the walls like liquid fire. His boots stuck to the melting floor panels, but Marcus pressed on. He followed the sound, a faint, high-pitched whimper barely audible over the roaring flames. Tezcari, I'm coming for you, buddy. Hang in there, Marcus shouted. His voice cracked under the heat, but he hoped the child would hear him. As he moved deeper into the ship, the intensity of the flames began to change. They danced unnaturally, almost sentient, coiling toward Marcus as if drawn to his presence. The heat climbed higher, beyond even what his protective suit was rated for. What the hell is causing this? Marcus muttered, gripping a carbonized bulkhead to steady himself. His comlink crackled to life. Kane, this isn't just a fire, Zathel's voice came through, distorted but urgent. Our sensors are detecting an energy signature. It's alive. Marcus didn't have time to process the implications. He had a job to do. The living flame. Marcus reached the reactor chamber, his suit's alarms blaring as temperatures spiked beyond its safety thresholds. Inside, Tezcari was huddled beneath a protective shell formed by some kind of alien biomatter. The child's many eyes locked onto Marcus, radiating both fear and hope. I've got you, Marcus said, kneeling beside the child. He wrapped a heat-shielding blanket around Tezcari and lifted the small, fragile body into his arms. The moment he did, the flames around them surged, almost as if in protest. Get out now. Zathel's voice cut through the calm static. The energy signature is converging on your location. It's hostile. As Marcus turned to retrace his path, the flames in front of him coalesced, forming a towering figure. It was humanoid in shape but made entirely of fire, its eyes, two glowing white-hot orbs. The being emitted a sound that could only be described as a low, guttural growl, a challenge. Oh, you've got to be kidding me, Marcus muttered. The creature lunged, its fiery limbs sweeping toward him. Marcus dodged, narrowly avoiding a searing strike that melted the floor where he had stood. The fire seemed to grow more aggressive, as if aware that Marcus was taking something precious away. This isn't your kid, Marcus growled, securing Tezcari tighter. Back off. He pulled a high-pressure suppressant canister from his belt and hurled it at the creature. The canister exploded on impact, releasing a burst of cryogenic foam. The flames hissed and recoiled, giving Marcus a precious few seconds to escape. As Marcus sprinted toward the exit, the ship's structure began to collapse. Girders fell, blocking his path, and the fiery entity gave chase, relentless and enraged. Marcus used every ounce of strength and ingenuity to navigate the maze of destruction, shielding Tezcari with his own body whenever debris rained down. When he finally burst out of the wreckage, the ground crew stared in awe. The flames at the ship's breach had parted, as though unwilling to touch Marcus as he emerged with Tezcari in his arms. He stumbled forward, collapsing to his knees as medics rushed to take the child. Behind him, the fiery entity loomed in the ship's remains, watching but not pursuing. For now, the battle was over. The truth beneath the flames. Hours later, Marcus sat in the Coalition medical bay, his burns bandaged and his exhaustion palpable. Tezcari's parents had thanked him profusely, their gestures clumsy but heartfelt. The child was stable, but the mystery of the fire remained. That wasn't just a fire, Marcus said, addressing the Coalition scientists gathered around his bed. What the hell was that thing? Zathel stepped forward, holding a datapad. We've analyzed the energy signature. It's ancient. Some kind of sentient plasma life form. We think it was dormant until the crash. The reactor's meltdown must have awakened it. Great, Marcus said, leaning back with a groan. So, I just pissed off an ancient fire god. Not quite, Zathel said. It's not a god, but it is powerful. And it seems protective. We believe it thought Tezcari was one of its own. That's why it didn't attack when you emerged. It recognized your intent. Marcus let out a weary laugh. So it's not just sentient, it's got feelings. Perfect. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The coalition now had to decide what to do about the entity. Destroy it? Contain it? Or try to communicate? Whatever happens, Marcus said, make sure Tezcari stays safe. That's all that matters. As he closed his eyes, letting exhaustion take over, Marcus couldn't shake the image of the fiery figure. It wasn't just a threat. It was alive. And somewhere deep inside, Marcus wondered if it had let him go for a reason. The inferno beckons. The burning ship loomed like a sun on the verge of collapse, spilling molten fragments into the abyss of space. Alarms blared as fire danced along the corridors. The alien child's desperate wails carried faintly through the infernal heat waves. No one dared enter. The ship's atmosphere was poison, the heat intolerable for any species. Except one. Colonel Ash Trennan adjusted the seals on her heat-resistant suit, her resolve hardening with each scream from the child inside. She heard the objections from the rescue crew in her comms. Colonel, the temperatures breached the human tolerance limit. I know, she snapped, stepping into the airlock. The hiss of pressurization was drowned out by the roar of the flames beyond. With a final glance at the quaking crew, she plunged into the fiery ship. Inside, the heat clutched her like a living thing. Her suit's alarms blared warnings about escalating temperatures. Ash ignored them, focusing on the weak cry coming from deeper in the ship. Each step through the collapsing corridor felt like eternity, her boots threatening to melt with every movement. Finally, she found the alien child, a young Kervati, barely larger than her forearm. Its iridescent skin glimmered with heat signatures, its compound eyes locked on hers in terror. Ash crouched low, speaking softly despite the raging inferno. It's okay. I'm here to take you home. The child whimpered, but extended one delicate limb toward her. A path through fire. The child clung to Ash's chest as she turned back toward the airlock. The ship groaned, its structural supports bending under the unbearable heat. Flames licked at the walls, and a burst pipe sent a jet of molten plasma across her path. She calculated the risks. Jumping over the flames might cost her seconds she didn't have, but going around meant braving a corridor near total collapse. The child trembled against her suit, its claws grazing her chest plate. Hang on tight, she whispered, leaping over the molten plasma. Her boots barely cleared it, and the intense heat made her stagger as she landed. Her suit's alarm screamed louder now, the temperature inside reaching dangerous levels. Ahead, the airlock gleamed like a promise. But a firestorm erupted behind her. A cascade of falling debris blocked the way back. Damn it, she cursed. Her mind raced. She remembered the ship's emergency schematics. An access hatch, used for maintenance, might still be intact above her. She glanced up. The hatch was partially melted, barely visible in the smoke, but it was their only shot. Summoning every ounce of strength, Ash hoisted herself and the alien child upward. The heat threatened to overwhelm her as her suit's cooling system faltered. Her muscles screamed in protest, but she climbed, her free hand gripping molten rungs as if her life depended on it. Because it did. Hope and ashes. Ash burst through the emergency hatch into the charred remains of the ship's upper deck. The airlock was just ahead. Her vision blurred, sweat pooling in her eyes despite the suit's safeguards. The child whimpered again, its tiny limbs wrapped around her like a vice. It's okay, she murmured, even as her breath came in ragged gasps. We're almost there. Behind her, the fire surged, an unstoppable beast devouring everything in its path. Ash stumbled forward, each step heavier than the last. The airlock hissed open, its cold embrace welcoming her just as her knees buckled. Close it, she screamed into her comms. The doors sealed shut, extinguishing the blaze that had pursued her. The room pressurized, and cool air flooded the space. Ash collapsed, her arms still cradling the alien child. She felt the weight of the rescue team pulling her to safety, but her eyes were fixed on the little Kervati. Its wide eyes blinked up at her, shimmering with gratitude. She managed to smile before her vision darkened.